even if we are going to fail to save the planet, it doesn't mean I am going to stop working towards that mission. If you wake up every day, you have to occupy yourself with this task, with this job. Otherwise, it's too depressing, and otherwise, you've checked out. We're here. There are children in the world. We owe it to them, and we owe it to their children and their children's children to give it our best shot. When I first came to the UK in 2004, I started looking at waste. I've always been interested in it. I like looking at two things. What are people eating and what are people throwing away? This is how I'm a tourist, I suppose. This is how I engage with the world. And when I first moved here, what I wanted to see were the sewers, were the landfill sites. I wanted to understand what was happening in the UK. And I was really shocked to learn that 100 million tons of material went to landfill in the UK in that year, 2004. So I started going to landfill sites and seeing what was there. And I expected to see household waste, this chaos. But I didn't expect to see all of the industrial waste. And then I had spotted a fire hose, had a chance meeting with the London Fire Brigade, and that was it, really. I fell in love with the fire hoses. I think one of the most important things that you need to have in any kind of a business is an amazing team. And there are people who are solo entrepreneurs who are fantastic at running an organization all by themselves, but I always knew that I didn't have all the skills to be an amazing solo entrepreneur. And Elvis actually wouldn't have gone down the entrepreneurial route. He's fantastic within organizations. He's really, really good at making complex things function. And when we got asked if we could deliver 1,000 belts for an event, and could we do it in a couple of weeks' time, of course my answer was yes. And we had never made a belt. Elvis was making the first belt at the time. So that night we stayed up all night trying to cut the fire hose with kitchen scissors. And the next morning we woke up with our hands like this because this is 4 millimeters thick rubber that we were trying to cut through. So we called back and said, could we do 500? We reinvested the money from selling those belts into buying a sewing machine, and Elvis learned to sew.
After being 10 years as an activist ambassador for Dopper to reduce plastic waste, the most important, people, they don't want it anymore. I see so many initiatives around the world. If the government doesn't do anything, the people are doing it. I was actually at the sunset, the sun was going down, people were leaving the beach. And at that moment, I really saw this nice carpet of plastic on the beach. Of course, it was not nice to see. But at that point, I realized when the tides were coming up, that actually all this garbage went into the ocean. And that was really a starting point for me, that I realized that the beach is not cleaned up by humans every evening, but that nature is doing this for us. Coming back at home, I saw a documentary of plastic soup. It was 2009. And it was actually the first time I realized that this plastic is going into the ocean, but also what happens to all this plastic. So there I learned it slowly biodegrades into the ocean and comes up as a so-called plastic soup. We have to do something about it. And I said, we as a community, but I didn't have the feeling anybody was standing up, no government, no person. So I thought for myself it will be the best to do something about it, stand up and at least talk about it for awareness. So I was telling people about it, and also why I thought it was kind of crazy which kind of plastic was there, because it's of course wrappers of ice cream and from Mars bars, but also a lot of mineral water. Especially on the beach, you want to be, you hydrate yourself. And I thought it was kind of strange because why should you have mineral water with you while you can tap in the Netherlands and from every tap very clear, fresh water? Together with a group of entrepreneurs here in Haarlem, we started to think about the best solutions. We came up with a really nice design bottle.
It's like, stop caring. I think people just care way too much. If you want to change the world, you have to stop caring about what people think, because it's gonna come with a lot of hardship. When I found out that toilet paper was literally killing 15 million trees per year to make, it just didn't make sense. And the way we wipe ourselves has not changed since the late 1800s. And you think about all the technology out there, the Wi-Fi, the cell phone, the smartphone, the this, the that, everything, self-driving cars coming up soon. And the minute we step into our bathrooms, poof, we're back into the 1800s. And why? Because nobody wants to talk about poop. Because nobody's talking about it, nobody's innovating in it. You know, toilet paper doesn't properly clean us. It's, you know, you don't wipe your body with dry paper anywhere else that's dirty. And it's the only part of our body that we've been deeply indoctrinated to believe that that's what's, you know, like the way to do it. And it's causing 30 million combined cases of chronic urinary tract infections, hemorrhoids, anal fissures, anal itching. All these things could be alleviated by just using water. And so I've always just been obsessed with bidets. I've known about them my whole life, but I've never really had one until my boyfriend, now husband, in our first Valentine's Day, gave me this really kind of like crappy Chinese bidet attachment thing that attached to my toilet. And I was like, what is this? And he was like, it's this Chinese thing that I found. And I was like, oh my God, we need to make this is the ugliest thing, but I love you so much, thank you. And I'm gonna find that manufacturer who made this, and I'm going to make it beautiful and create the best American brand and create the best bidet product. And also saving millions and millions of life-giving trees we wouldn't be here.
We're trying to create a happiness. If we're not able to do that in our own family, then what on earth are we doing with others and for others? So I don't start at 8 a.m. in the morning, and I'll also leave a little bit earlier because I want to be home for dinner with my family. My journey towards Waka Waka already started when I was 17, I guess. I had to write a project report about something for geology in high school, and I wanted this to be about terraforming on Mars, but I wasn't allowed because it had to be about geology on Earth. So I found that there was a problem on Earth that was called at the time the greenhouse effect. In 1991, when I wrote that paper, there was a sort of a new term. Nobody talks about the greenhouse effect anymore. But at the time, I thought that this could potentially be the largest challenge, or the biggest challenge for my generation. So I was 17. I thought one man can change the world, or one woman for that matter. So I figured I was going to be that guy that was going to fix the greenhouse effect single-handedly. And then came along Al Gore, and he just did exactly what I wanted to do. To be honest, I knew nothing about lighting when we started this. I knew nothing about LED lighting. The idea for Waka Waka, the first seed actually, was planted in South Africa even. During the World Cup Soccer, Moritz and I were there to green the entire World Cup Soccer with LED lights. It was a concept that we thought of in order to help the organizing committee to organize a climate-neutral World Cup Soccer. But it had the largest carbon footprint in human history of a sports event. And it was while we're traveling through South Africa that the idea came about to do something about that, about providing lights to the base of the pyramid who were not connected to the electricity grid. But Moritz and I, we were doing this together, we told each other, I said, whatever we do, we are not going to start an LED lighting company because it's way too complex. Less than a year later, that's exactly what we did.
You know, the lifestyle that I live isn't for everyone. With social media, it's very easy to glamorize somebody else's life and to compare yourself to somebody else. And so I think it's important to know yourself well, value what makes you different, and understand that you're not going to be the same as somebody else. My mom raised my sister and I very healthy, and rather than buying us the more generic products that had a lot of chemicals in them for preservatives and sugar, she raised us on various super herbs. And so we were always raised to value the healing power of the earth and natural medicine. And so that's how Down to Earth initially got started. But it's based on the premise that we could really heal ourselves naturally. And as a society, we've moved further and further away from the earth and from natural remedies. And we've gotten into a society that's more prescription-based and chemically altered food-based. It's really interesting because Down to Earth has been a lifelong process getting here. My biggest passion has always been health and wellness, and I've always been obsessed with beverages and healthy beverages from a young age because my mom would raise us on all these super herbs, so every night before school, we would spend time as a family making our own homemade concoctions out of all of these various super herbs, and then we'd bottle them in our reusable glass bottles and bring them with us everywhere. But the moment that I realized I want to pursue it as a brand was 2.5 years ago. I was randomly sitting in my apartment. I had just made myself one of my beverages, and I was just thinking about what makes me happy. I was working a job that I didn't feel fulfilled in, and I knew that this wasn't my calling. And I was just sitting there, soul searching, thoughts going all over the place as I'm holding one of my drinks and drinking it, and it hit me. This is what you love, this is what you've always loved, and it's time for you to pursue your dreams. You just have to commit and make a decision that no matter what, you're gonna figure it out. And that's the moment that I decided. And since that day, it's been 100%.
You just have to start doing things, and on the way, grab your chances. When the train comes by with a chance, take it. And don't hesitate, go for it. I would say go for it. I've always took the opportunities and I said, I'll jump on. And sometimes it was wrong, but if you don't jump on, you miss everything. I started this company in 2012 with all my knowledge and all my experience and a little bit of money that I had ahead of me to start this company, be an example company in the fashion industry. I'm now 35 years in the garment industry, and I saw the whole industry changing from making a beautiful item that protects you and that makes you good looking. And when I started, we had a winter collection and a summer collection, and that was okay, I could understand that. And later we had a spring collection and an autumn collection. That's still fine. But nowadays, if you don't make 52 collections each year, you sort of don't feel good anymore because they think the consumers want that, but I don't believe that. I think when you have a beautiful pair of jeans, you can wear it whole year round. So we decided to make the jeans in organic cotton and in factories where people are fairly paid and all the new techniques of washings and less water are used. And that's one part of our business, of course, very important. But then you also have to be responsible for what you put into the market and try to get it back so that it doesn't get burned or thrown away or landfilled. So we wanted to have our organic cotton back and reuse it in our new jeans. And that took us a long time to find the factories that can shred the jeans, tear them apart, mix it with new organic cotton because we still have to use new stuff. Make yarn, weave the denim, and then dye it in a way that's also proper because indigo is one of the most polluting dyestuffs in the world. So we use cradle-to-cradle indigo now. We said, how do we push the consumers to send the jeans back to us? How can we explain this to them that this is important, that the raw material is still usable? And then Lisa jeans came up because it's a different thought. You move from owning something towards using a product, to the performance of the product. And actually that's what you're looking for. You want to wear a pair of jeans. You don't need to be the owner.
Never start a company to sell it immediately. If you really have this extremely long-term perspective, you get calmer and you really take the right also long-term and sustainable decisions. The idea, the story is different. Actually, the story is that we had 1,000 different ideas to found a company. Out of all the ideas we have, we need to fulfill actually 3 things that are important for us. The company needed to have to do something with creativity. Second thing was that we wanted to make a physical product. The third thing was that we wanted to do something that was valuable for society as well, because during university studies they teach us that you can either make money or do something for the environment or for social causes, and that would be a company and that would be an NGO. So we said, well, why is that? Why can it not be possible that you do both things together? The first idea that was making t-shirts with different artists from all over the world and putting some of the profits that we make into charity projects. But with that idea in mind, we actually bought, I don't know how many different t-shirts that we wanted to print those artworks on from different suppliers all over the world, and we always had something that we did not like. It might have been the color or the size, the fit, the thickness of the material. We just weren't satisfied, and well, the only solution for that was that we had to do our own t-shirts and produce our own t-shirts. So we went to Google and searched for how to make a t-shirt, and that was actually the start to find the right supply chain that we could also control and make a real alternative to what happens in the market.
I guess I have a lot of hope in humanity. You know, I think at some point we're going to be so overcrowded and such like sardines. It will serve our best interests to do something, make better choices towards the environment. It's very idealistic of me, but I'm young. I've been living in New York City for a long time now, and I grew up in farm country in Pennsylvania. And when I moved here for school, my one sort of connection to home was cooking. And so I started going to the Union Square Farmers Market once a week, then twice a week, then 3 times a week. And I'm a single woman, and I just had too much produce. So I started to teach myself to preserve, which I then learned my grandmother used to do, but I never was taught that. So, you know, I'd been preserving things for a while, making jams, chutneys, really whatever I could do. And one of my mentors, Gail, sat me down for dinner one night and said, you know, Diana, what are you going to do with your life? You know, it's time to sort of pick a path, because I'm a woman who does many things. And I said, without even thinking, I was like, oh, I want to make jams, and I want them to be in every household in America. I say I want to be in every fridge or every pantry, and I really would love for that to be the case. I want to help change the food system. That's why I started preserving in the first place. Because, and I don't make jam, let's just put that out there. I use 40% less sugar than regular jam. I don't use any pectin or any added preservatives. So I'm already very different from the mainstream in the marketplace. And I also really care about farmers and farmland and keeping our American farmers in business and eating with the season. I make a product that goes out in the world, and I want to leave the smallest footprint possible that we can.
We first started going out and looking for manufacturers that might want to work with us and help us design and build a range of accessories, but no one would touch the fire hose. We were rejected in England, France, Spain, Portugal. We were constantly told, it's not leather, we won't work with this material. It's dirty, it's ugly, it's unconventional. And that's why Elvis learned to sew. So we were very lucky that we had this incredible order of a very simple product that we were able to make ourselves. And that gave us the time for Elvis to learn to sew, for us to develop products, for us to finally be able to attract a manufacturing partner after a long time of looking. From that point on, it's always been growing based on what we could sell. Today, you might go onto a website like Kickstarter, or you might do a crowdfunding online mission. But we were before all of that. There was no Kickstarter, there was no crowdfunding. So really what we did was just go out and try and sell what we could, build our first website, and then every step forward we took, we used any income we had to finance trying new things, pushing the products further, exploring new wastes, and putting any other revenue into donations or into R&D.
Now, getting light into the hands of people who need it most is what we started Waka Waka for in the first place. But only half the people who live without light have the disposable means, have the income actually to afford a solar product. Doesn't matter what price range, but the other half, which is about 500 million people, do not have the disposable income to afford any kind of sustainable solution. So we set out to solve the entire problem, which means that we have to come up with solutions also for this group of people that do not have money at all. The only way to get light into the hands of those families is to donate light. But if you do that, we would disrupt the market. We would basically make it impossible for other companies that use market-based solutions to sell their product, because people will think that solar is free of charge and they will just wait for the next company to come along to donate product to them. So how to do it? How to get light into the household without disrupting the market, but actually stimulating it. We are donating lights, not to the end user, but to schools. Students, they go to school during the day, they would charge their light in the sun during the daytime, and as the sun sets, they use their light to go home, they have light to actually make it home, and they have light to do their homework in the evening. The next day, they take it back to school, charge it in the sun, and this for a whole school year. So together with the books, they get a light, and at the end of the year, they need to return the books and the light, just like a regular library.
Yeah, at a certain point, I really understood that I had to make a business out of this, because I think if it's only an initiative and if you're only screaming from the roof that something is important and you have to change your habits, it's not going to work. So if you really put this commercially into the market, then more and more people will buy this bottle and more people will save plastic water bottles from mineral water. So then I had the feeling it's going to be a business, but still I had no clue how big I wanted to be. I only wanted to make a change. I thought, okay, with a few thousand euros, we make a bottle. But in the end, it was not, a little bit more than a few thousands. It was more than 100,000 euros. So I really had to scratch money from my friends and family to make it happen. And then I did a calculation, as you should do when you put a product to the market, how much margin you want to make and how many you want to sell. And initially I thought, yeah, I will sell around 200,000 and then the problem is solved and everybody knows about it. But in the first year we sold already more than 200,000. So instead of my whole lifetime selling 200,000, it was 200,000 in the first year. Yeah, all of a sudden I became a CEO or the boss of a company. While I actually only wanted to create a movement, then you also need a leader, of course. But still today, I'm the leader of the movement. And luckily, I have a CEO. But over the years, in the beginning, of course, I was leading the company. I had to hire people, fire people, get them motivated, take them everywhere, explain them what I want. But I thought it was a really, really hard job. In the beginning, it's full of power and everybody's joining you. But the more you grow, actually, more people are on different departments. Yeah, you really need to teach them and learn them what they should do. I had a good talk with my brother about this, making plans for the next year. That was in 2012. And he said, if you continue growing like this, you're actually hiring almost every month new people. And finding new people means also not one talk, but most of the time 3 talks, 4 talks, sometimes 5 talks before you come to a deal. And so the whole year will be planned full of only talks with employees. Is that what you want? And then I really, it came clear to me that I needed to change my own role within the company. Change from being the boss of the company, the CEO, to again be this ambassador for the company. So yeah, then you start hiring better and better people to make this happen?
I wasn't green before. I was just trying to make a living, and you can earn a lot of money by trading in textiles. I did that, and I was able to have a good life so far, and I like traveling, so you see a lot of new places. I didn't really think at that time of how devastating the textile industry is for the world, for the environment. The difference for me came, you get children, they grow up, and I believe that our generation, my generation, has created a world that is not workable for the generations after us, and that's unfair. So we lost a little bit of the touch with the earth, and that has to change. To start Mud Jeans was more difficult than I would have expected. And it's been 7 very difficult years also money-wise. I didn't build this company to become a millionaire, to make big money, but of course you want to pay your salary. Part of sustainability is that you are there next year also. So that means we make less margin. That means you can pay yourself a lower salary. The rent of your building has to be low. Every single thing you do, you have to think about the money. I sold my house and I invested the money in this company. And that's a difficult decision. But on the other hand, I'm okay. I have a roof above me and I drive a nice car and I can eat every day. And you realize that you don't need that much actually.
Going to the same farmers at market for a few years just as a consumer sort of helped. And I also cold called a lot of farms. I got a lot of no's or a lot of, we don't do wholesale. But like Tim, who grows my tomatoes, I pick up my tomatoes from him once or twice a week during tomato season. So I really believe that relationship is important to the product. I break a lot of rules in having a food business because of my seasonality disorder, basically. I mean, I really care about preserving produce at the peak of ripeness. It makes the world of difference in taste and texture and nutrients. I have about 4.5 to 5 months of production in the year that starts late June, July, and I'm really at the mercy of Mother Nature. If peaches come late, I'm producing late, or if green tomatoes aren't really coming, then I have to wait on them. So it's a real give and take with Mother Nature, actually.
I was invited to tell something about Armed Angels. It's a couple of years ago. We were still even smaller than now, but there was also someone from H&M. Everyone was listening and everyone was interested. And then this H&M guy asked how much revenue we actually do with it. And I told him, right? And then he laughed and said, oh, well then, continue. Every time that someone is basically giving me the feeling that my ideas are not good enough, or that will never happen, or that it's impossible to do so, that even drives me more to actually prove that it is possible. I really want to have a company that has a voice, right? That is big enough so that people listen, and that also proves that the linkage of doing something good and still doing business is the right way.
I never thought that I was disadvantaged as a woman per se, personally, just because I never ever saw life that way. But I also played the game. I know that for my first business, couldn't raise any money on my own. So I brought in a white guy with a British accent to present my idea for me and raised $250,000. So, for me moving forward with now my new company, it's really about creating really the right, the right protection for myself and for my team, where I have a really seasoned CEO, I have a really seasoned sort of management team to really run the business, where I don't feel like I can get sort of, taken advantage of. Also, when you're building, a business that is disruptive, society is here and disruptors are here trying to move society forward, right? And so when society wants to maintain its form and stay here. And same thing with me, I've gotten, headlines where people had said Mickey doesn't offer maternity leave policy. when she's a feminist company, stuff like that. And I'm just like, we didn't have any pregnant people at the time. And I think that when you're in integrity and really operating from a place of integrity, you can fight, you can go through and fight anything.
I had a lot of knowledge and experience about these various super herbs that I was consuming for so many years. And throughout the years, people around me, friends, colleagues, professors would always ask me about my beverages, and they'd ask me to make them for them. So I would make them for people, but in my kitchen. It's much different when you're scaling your recipes and figuring out all the guidelines, because with food and beverage, especially in the United States, there's so many regulations. So it takes a lot of developmental work before you're ready to bring a product onto the shelves. So I initially just started doing a lot of research, and throughout the year and a half that it took to develop the brand, every week we would feel like we were there, and then you find out there's something else that you have to do. When I made the decision that I was going to figure it out, and no matter what, continue on with the journey, that's when I was able to actually create the brand and now build the brand.
What is the secret to success? Then you first have to define success. You can be successfully money-wise, you can be successfully living your life. So it's a difficult question. I find success for myself, what I do now, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't take different actions. So I feel I'm successful in my own way, and I feel happy about it.
I thought a lot about what would be success for me, because if you don't know what it is for you, then maybe you will never be successful for yourself, and that is, I think, first of all, the most important thing. For me, it's not about making a huge load of money. It's also not to be famous, because I think that's also a driver for a lot of people, to be, all those Instagram people that want to be famous one day. That's definitely not my thing. I don't want to be famous. I really would like to see myself as a person that made a difference for how we live on the planet.
I thought I wasn't successful until we've actually reached 1 billion people, which would mean that I would probably never ever be successful in my life. I'm not saying that it's an impossible dream. I believe it's possible, but I also realize that it's very hard to reach 1 billion people. Today we've reached over 1.5 million people that now have light.
My secret to success is keeping myself in the mission, keeping myself focused on what I really want to do. It's very good to have an aim far away, and it's very good to peel it down towards you till it's coming here next to you. So you have to know what you have to do every day. So if you get up in the morning, you know your end goal and also what you need to do today to reach this end goal. And if you get up in the morning and there's no goal, then there will be also no success. So if the mailbox is one of your things to do, forget about your mailbox. You just focus on this one little email or this one little meeting where contributes to your goal. And then you really come to your success. I think this is really when you want to look for success, this is the way how to go. And be patient, because everybody loves and thinks maybe Dopper went like this, but it's going like this. And yes, it's going up, but sometimes you also really fall down. And if you acknowledge this is part of the success. If you ignore it, what I did also one time, and sometimes I still do, you ignore, you put something away because you don't want to see it. You always have to face the whole company.
Being successful has always been a goal for me, but let's talk about what success means. Success to me has never been associated with money. The only thing that money does is it greases the wheels, it helps you keep the door open, and it gives you the freedom to make the decisions that you want to make as a business. So to me, it's never been about money. It's been about whether we were doing something challenging and interesting and socially and environmentally worthwhile. And if we were doing that and we were enjoying it, then we were successful.
After 10 successful crowdfunding campaigns, there were a few issues that really prevented us from going out and reaching out to investors in the way that we've liked to. And this really prevented from that IPO to become the success that we had hoped it to be. And it was when that happened, really, it was actually too late. We needed that funding round in order to make it through. And when that round didn't make it, when it failed, we ran out of cash. We discussed with our other shareholders, and we decided that we had to file for bankruptcy ourselves. We thought that was the responsible thing to do, instead of wait for other people or other companies to make the decision for us. At least in this way we could properly at least plan it, prepare our staff for it, and that's exactly what we did. People don't teach you how to deal with when your company goes belly up, when it goes bankrupt. I think it's something that people really need to be prepared for. We weren't. We learned a lot in a very, very short time. I blame myself for everything, to be honest. I was end responsible, obviously together with Moritz, but we were the founders, but also the CEOs of Waka Waka. This happened on our watch. So whatever happened, there's no finger I can point to anyone but myself. If anything, I think I turned maybe a blind eye to important details that I should have paid a lot more attention to. Already in the beginning of Waka Waka, some of the problems already started in a very early stage. I think I never spent enough time and effort looking at financials. So I've learned the hard way also that as a CEO, those are the first things that you should be wary of. And therefore I think we are extremely fortunate that it turned out to be an investor that we brought also to the curator ourselves. So he said, listen, Waka Waka is bankrupt, would you be interested to speak to the curator? What was heartwarming really was the day that the news came out. Literally hundreds and hundreds of personal messages coming in through social media, email, phone call, WhatsApp, you name it, to Moritz and me personally, also the rest of the team, but also to us personally. Wishing us strength and hoping for the better, and we never gave up. We always said, as long as the sun shines, there's hope for Waka Waka. That is how we went into this bankruptcy, and I think that's how we came out. But the heartwarming messages that will always stay with me. And now you've done it. And it happened again when we announced that we were able to relaunch the company. People were as enthusiastic that we were able to do that. And so was I. That we were able to really deliver on the promises that we made. And that was really special. That's something that I could not have imagined happening, coming out of a thing like this.
When you start a company like this and you are a millionaire, I had a lot of money on the bank, people look differently at you than when you have no money. Whatever you want to make of it, that's the way it is. And when you start investing in a company that loses money for 1 year, for 2 years, for 3 years, and you still invest money, people around you are not understanding it anymore. They say, you stop with it because you're working very hard, you don't make any money, what are you doing? And that's hard to explain. And also for the close relatives, sometimes they don't understand that. And you don't want to explain because you've put in your head that you are going to do this and you want to do it and you just keep going. Maybe that's wrong, but that's what I did. And that doesn't always help in your private life. So, okay. The relationship I had broke up. Maybe not only because of it, but it didn't help. I don't have to tell anybody anymore what I'm doing with my money. I want to use it for this, and that's what I'm doing. Maybe very egoistic, but I thought at that time of life I was able to do that and take my own decisions and not taking this decision by thinking of the people around me, just for myself.
We had a really difficult year as a business in 2010. It was a great year because we solved the fire hose problem, but it was also a terrible year because We had a factory that we were working in Dorset that was closed by the government. We had a factory that we were working with in Romania that was discovered by a much larger luxury brand that bought all of its capacity. So overnight we had no manufacturing at all. We were trying to buy a building, and at the last minute the sale of that building fell through. And in order to buy that building, we had sold our flat and given up our workspace. So literally we were homeless, the business was homeless, we had nowhere to go. It was 1 week till Christmas. And it's not like it's easy for us to move the business. We have machines that are 2 tons, literally 2,000 kilograms. You can't just pick them up and put them in a van and take them somewhere else. And you can't just plug them into an ordinary plug socket. You need special kind of power. So we have had some really bad luck as a business. But we always just looked at it like, it happens, let's get past it, let's get through it.
I was warned for this, that it can happen. You can grow too fast, or at a certain point of employees, the company can change. And what happened in this case was that I saw the proceeds going up, but I didn't look at the cash flow, and there were people triggering me to start in the US and in Hong Kong. And I thought the US was a big dream because I thought the plastic pollution problem, especially on the East Coast, is really big. It's a convenience lifestyle which is there. So I wanted to make impact there. So I thought, okay, let's do it. Let's have an office. Started on the West Coast, by the way, in San Francisco. But didn't realize that I started in the most environmentally friendly city and in one of the most expensive cities at the same time. So there was already awareness, and there were already bottles out there which were sustainable. So it was a really hard struggle to get things going. And at the same time in Hong Kong, 2 girls really wanted to start there. So I thought, yeah, why not? And they will make revenue anyway and right away. But of course, yeah, the first year it didn't went as here in the Netherlands and also not in the US. So yeah, it was at a certain point, October 2013, when I was under the shower and I counted all this money what I had to spend. And I thought, okay, if we keep continuing like this, in January it will be over. I really had to make a cut and really important decisions to stop in San Francisco and in Hong Kong, and really have all the focus again on the Netherlands to make an organic growth. This was not organically anymore. It was too fast, too hard. I had a divorce at the same time. Everything comes together. If you're not feeling right, things at home are also not going well. And I tried to be on both worlds at the same time to do good. But in the end, on both worlds, actually everything was falling apart, which was really hard. What I learned from this period also is that it's so important to have time for yourself, really for yourself. So not in the company and not at home, but really time for yourself. And later I discovered this. And later I took action on this, but at that point I really kept on working and try to save my relationship. But it didn't work, unfortunately. Yeah.
I think luck is being at the right place at the right time. And that can be the right place and time for you, or that can be the right place and time for whoever you're working with.
Am I lucky because I started this company and it's starting to work? I think I am. When you would have asked me the second year of the company, I would have said no. You have to keep going, and one day it comes and you will say, okay, I didn't do it for nothing. So yeah, I think I'm a lucky one.
I realize I'm very fortunate, and I also think that comes with a responsibility to actually use, let's say, those assets that I was born into, if you will. And then to get a second chance with Waka Waka. I believe that is unique. I think very few people who go through something like this are so lucky.
Feeling lucky and feeling satisfied with your life, it's a journey. And I think that it's something that continues to evolve over time. I'm still relatively young and hopefully have a long way to go. But I think that it's something that you have to work on finding every single day.
The perfect moment that Dopper started, I don't know, is it luck? I don't think so. And on the other hand, at the same time, I really think, yeah, this was the lucky moment to start Dopper. And yeah, everything what is happening is really going organically. And I think everything what you give, you also get back.
I think the fact that I'm born in a first world country to loving parents in an able body and with education and, you know, clean air, clean drinking water, food on the table, a community of people who love me and I love. I mean, I'm very lucky in that regard, just having my basic human needs met.
As long as you can see it, as long as you can understand that you are lucky, then it is really your responsibility to do the most with it and to leverage it and to try and then make everyone else hopefully as lucky as you are in a way.
For me, yes. For other people, maybe not, because I'm not sure if everyone would actually like to change places. I think luck is if you are able to do what you love and what you like to do. And as I do so, yes, I would consider myself lucky.